Howdy, Texas. I am not from Texas. I'm from the state of Georgia, but I really enjoyed learning a lot about Texas just then. My name is Chase Oliver. I was the Libertarian candidate for President of the United States in this most recent election, and I'm here to talk about campaigning. Thank you. I'm here to talk about campaigning in a positive manner in a very negative political atmosphere, because I don't know if you noticed, but here in the United States, for those of you, sorry, I caused a hum. For those of you who aren't from the United States, we just got done with an election cycle that was quite negative. I think you could definitely say that many of the people who voted for one candidate or another in the mainline parties were doing so because they did not like the opposing candidate, not because they were super in love with their candidate. And in that atmosphere, how do you spread the message of liberty? Because we do live in nominally a two-party system country where the media, the voters, and most of the attention lands with the Democrats and Republicans. And so how do you campaign positively when you're the libertarian? When you're fighting tooth and nail just to get some media coverage, when you're having to travel miles and miles and you're not in a private plane, you're flying coach, you're staying in the cheapest hotel your campaign can get you in, you wake up some mornings and you don't realize what town you're in. How do you keep doing that with a smile on your face? Well, you have to. You have to do that, because that's the only way we're going to spread our message outside of the two-party system. Nobody wants to be scowled and scolded. Nobody wants to be told they're stupid or they're completely wrong all the time. Many times they are. But nobody likes to be lectured that way. So the way we spread the message of liberty is not by lecturing people, but by conversing with people, by engaging with people, and by approaching them with a positive mindset. Always have a smile on your face when you're spreading the message of liberty. Why? Because there's no better message to send. There's no better message to send than that people own themselves and that a government should not have control over them. But to break people of the spell, you have to have that smile on your face. So I want to talk a little bit about this campaign and what we've gone through in this campaign and what we're looking to do in the future with the Libertarian Party. So in this campaign, I received just over 600,000 votes. They're still counting votes in a lot of states, but we've now gotten, I believe, I'm the fourth highest performing candidate to ever run for president with the Libertarian Party. And I take that to mean, very much to heart. That puts me ahead of some really great libertarians who have run for president in the past. And it signals to me that even in a time when we were extremely, extremely polarized, even more so than 4 years ago, 8 years ago, probably the most polarized we've been in my entire life, 2/3 people still came out and selected the Libertarian candidate because they knew that's where their principles lied. And it was because of a lot of hard work. But I want to talk a little bit about how rewarding it is when you go meet people face to face. So I did a lot of state fairs as I traveled the country. If you're not from here in the United States, state fairs are essentially a chance for all of the folks from one state, all of their industry, all of the things that they're excited about to come in one place and promote that. So in a place like Iowa, that's a lot of farmers, a lot of pigs, a lot of talk about agriculture, but also you meet thousands of people each day. And I can tell you right now, the average person I met in Iowa at the state fair, for instance, most of them were not libertarians or liberty-minded folks. Most of them had been conditioned to vote Republican or Democrat their entire lives, and that's just kind of where they were. But I was relentless. I asked these people what matters to them. What matters to you? What is most important to you as a voter? And once you get that information, you can then present them the solution through the liberty lens. You care about your kids. You want to make sure they have a great education. Well, good. Let's get the government out of education. Why? Because you as a parent have unconditional love for your kids. You're going to do whatever you can to see your kids survive and thrive and succeed. So why do we take power out of your hands and we put it in the hands of a nameless bureaucrat in Washington, D.C.? They don't know your kids. They don't know what makes them special, but you do. So let's empower you to pick the best choice for education or healthcare or anything else for your kids, and let's keep the state out of that. And you know what happens every time you say that message to somebody, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or independent? They smile and say, you know what, that sounds like a really good idea. And that's how you start spreading the message of liberty, is one conversation at a time. I have spoken to people who have thought that there was no reason to vote. There's no reason to vote because they felt so dissatisfied. And they just happened to find the Libertarian Party in my campaign this election, and it gave them something to vote for. That's a powerful, positive force in our election, and that's what's going to change a lot of what's going on in the world. Now, Democrats, they said a lot about freedom at their convention. They said the word freedom over and over again as if they understood the meaning of that word. And Republicans, they ran on government efficiency. We're going to cut government, as if they've ever done that before. And the truth is that neither of them are really going to follow through. But they're using those messages. Why? Because they're popular. Because people like to hear about freedom, even if it's being sold to them by somebody who won't give it to them. And they like to hear about government efficiency, even if it's being told to them by somebody who's not really going to cut government. Let's be realistic. But those messages are powerful. And so we have to find a way to continue to break through to each individual voter with the powerful message of liberty in a positive manner. And again, I faced a lot of negativity. Trust me, when you get nominated to be a candidate for president, you're not a Democrat or Republican, suddenly every Democrat and Republican hates your guts. Suddenly, every time you go online, there's a steady stream of people ready to tell you why you're wrong, why people are wasting their vote, and why it's stupid that you're even running for office. But it kept a smile on my face. Why? Because I knew those principles were worth fighting for. And no keyboard warrior online is going to get me down when I had the principles of liberty backing me up. And you get a lot of messages when you run for office. I got a couple here. These are the most recent ones that I just got on the way here. I stopped by the mailbox right before I got in the headed to the airport. And I got these 2 letters. I want to read them to talk to you about the powerful positivity of liberty. So this first one is from a woman named Sarah Price in Virginia. I do love that she used nice stationery paper. Dear Mr. Oliver, I just returned from my polling location where I cast my vote for you. I have never voted on an independent candidate, even though I align perfectly with libertarians. But you, Mr. Oliver, did one thing I've never seen a candidate do. You stopped talking about yourself to insist that a constituent's answer be questioned. I'm referring to the moment during your recent interview with Jim Babka. By the way, Jim Babka, shout out to him. When you stopped to address Cassie Wyatt's healthcare question. In that moment, I saw that, yes, it is possible to have a president who cares. Thank you for running, and thank you for helping me realize that I'm not throwing my vote away. I'm just trying to give my children a real option for real change, and I sincerely hope for that one day. That's what happens when I took the time to stop talking about myself and start talking about the constituents who had questions. How many politicians in D.C. do that? Not enough of them. And if more of them took the time to listen to their constituents and their concerns, we would have a very different government in Washington, D.C. This one is the one I'm really happy about. This one's not written on pretty stationery. This is from a young lady named Alana out in Westchester, Pennsylvania. She wrote it in her school paper. She's a 9th grader. I will paraphrase. Chase Oliver, my name is Alana. I'm a freshman in Great Valley High School in Malvern, Pennsylvania, and ever since my 8th grade year, I've been questioning my political party. I was leaning towards the Republican Party, but there were some issues. Tariffs, taxation, big government, abortion, drug laws, and LGBTQ rights were big issues to me. And since the news media only gave coverage to Republicans and Democrats, I thought I'd have to vote either red or blue until I received a sample ballot in the mail from my Republican Party on who to vote for. I took a look at the presidential candidates, and your name and your running mate's name were on the ballot. And at that point, I thought to myself, who are these people? And why would these people run if they know they're not going to win? So I decided to do some research on who you were and why you were on the ballot. And that's when I came across libertarianism. I knew libertarianism would be the party, after doing some research, I came across libertarianism in your campaign. After doing some research, I knew libertarianism and libertarian will be the party that I'm registering for when I turn 18. I also did some research on you and on your run for president and on your message. And I heard people saying voting third party is a wasted vote. But I also heard in your video, you said that was bullshit. And I found that your video to be inspirational. I've shared with many of my friends and family. Now, I want to paraphrase there. I just want to stop. I don't want to read all of Alana's letters. She's very nice and complimentary to me. But again, this isn't about me. This is about the fact that in a positive campaign, this 8th grader found her political home before she's even old enough to vote. I spoke to so many young people, high schoolers and college students, about the principles of liberty. I walked into a college debate where it was myself, the Green Party, the uncommitted Democrats, and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And when I say the Party for Socialism and Liberation girl, she was from the school. She packed it with all her friends. So I knew I was walking into a very unfriendly room. And yet I answered the questions that were given to me on things like education, healthcare policy, the war in Gaza, other issues, and I answered it through the libertarian lens. And lo and behold, I got second place in the room full of college students, which for a libertarian, I got to say, considering the person who won, she packed the room with her friends, I consider that a really good thing, that a lot of young people heard the message, because one of the questions was, a majority of young people want college to be paid for by the government, and they want healthcare to be paid for by the government, and they want their childcare to be paid for by the government. What do you or your organization think about that? And I stood up and I said, I'm going to disagree with the majority of young people. I don't think that's a great idea for you. I know it sounds good, but do you really want your childcare and your healthcare to be run by the same people who run Amtrak and the United States Postal Service? And that really got people looking like, oh yeah, that does kind of make sense. But the fact is I walked in that room knowing I would be facing a bunch of college-age leftists who are liable to say all sorts of horrible things about me and about libertarianism. And I walked in with a smile on my face, the principles in my heart, and ready to speak that message. And guess what? We converted some people to libertarianism. That is a success. Every single time I met a voter and they said, I'm not voting red or blue anymore. I'm going to vote outside the two-party system. I'm going to vote for the principles of liberty. That to me was a win. And I got over 600,000 wins across the country. That felt really good. And it continues to fuel me to speak the message of liberty outward. And no matter what the issue is, approach it with positivity. We know the state is terrible. Everyone knows the state is terrible. Even Democrats and Republicans know the state is terrible and that taxes are too high and they suck. So if we just go in there going, the state's terrible and taxes are too high, they say, well, that's what everybody says. What are you offering that's different? Well, I say, how about a foreign policy that's rooted in peace? That says, why do we have to militarize the world? Why do we have to continue to treat the world as black and white? You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. That's the kind of mindset we've had for 20 years. Maybe there's something different where we treat people with the nuance and the respect they deserve. Isn't that better than what we've been having? Or with education, again, I want people to be able to choose the school they want their kids to go to so their kids can survive and thrive and be critical thinkers and lifelong learners. But I know that the public school system creates the cracks that too many students fall through, and we need to decentralize education. Why? Not because I think public school teachers are bad. I think the system they work in is bad. And I want to change that system so those teachers can go work in a better school. It's not about hatred. It's about positivity and about improving the condition. When we look at healthcare, again, some people want a government takeover of healthcare. I say no to that because I see the shortages it creates and the misery it creates. But instead of just talking about how terrible government-run healthcare is, I talk about the powerful positivity of when we break down barriers in the marketplace to allow for lower prices for drugs. We tear down patent evergreening that allows generics to come on the marketplace. We allow ourselves to buy drugs across national borders. There are so many things we can do that are positive impacts on the healthcare system without just going, the state sucks and taxes are too high. We already know that. That is the default that most people are working with. And so what we have to do is we have to provide that positive change. What can we do to improve the lives of the voters, their families, their community? I think one of the things that I was most proud of running as a libertarian in this election was dispelling the notion that libertarians are selfish. I think that's the biggest slander that's against the libertarian and liberty community overall around the world, is that because we care about individual rights and individual liberty, we must be selfish because we only care about us, the individual. But that's not true at all. Because if I'm free and you're not, that's not liberty. We all have to be free. We have to export that principle to everyone. So it's not just about my individual rights, my individual liberty. It's about all of our individual rights and all of our individual liberty. And I can think of no more empathic message than to say that you may live your life completely differently than I do. You may have a different set of values than I do. You may worship a different God than I do or not worship at all. You may have a whole different, a viewpoint about how the world works. And so long as you live that life in peace, that's fine. That's okay, because that's what liberty affords. That's an empathic message. That's a message that can be exported to each and every person around the world if we do so with a smile on our face, the principles in our heart, and the conviction to fight for each and every person's liberty, even if that person is very different than ourselves. I want to finish here with and I'll happily take any kind of questions, but I want to tell a couple anecdotes that I got from the road as I was traveling. First was when I was still running for the nomination for president. I happened to be traveling through rural Alabama, an area called the Black Belt. It is an area where the majority of the rural landowners and farmers are African Americans. One of the few areas of the country that's like that. And there's a great activist named Portia Shepard out there, and she knew I liked to go to church on Sundays. And she said, "Well, you'll be traveling through Alabama, Chase. Come to church with me." I said, "That's great, Portia. That'll be awesome. I'd love to just come to church." And of course, I'm the one white guy in the church. I'm sticking out like a green thumb. Everybody can see me, or a sore thumb rather. And about halfway through the sermon, the pastor gets up and he says, "Well, you may have noticed we got ourselves a special guest in the audience today. His name is Chase Oliver, and he's running for president." I was like, I did not want to be acknowledged. And he goes, "And we're going to give him about 10 minutes to speak with us after the sermon today." And I was like, nobody told me that. And so then I start thinking, oh, I need a Bible verse to cut to. I got to talk about this. And I was super nervous. And then I got up there, I realized the average age of the parishioner in that room was like over the age of 60 to 70-year-olds, older folks. And so I started talking about freedom. I started talking about freedom for each and every individual and how libertarians support the non-aggression principle and how we support organizing and fighting back against the state using peaceful, nonviolent resistance, because that's part of our principles, is that we don't need aggression to get our point across. And I said, when I say this to people all the time, they say, "When has that ever worked? When does that ever work?" And in that room, I knew I was in a room full of people who did make that work, because in the 60s and 70s, these people fought to tear down Jim Crow laws. So I was literally standing in a room full of a community of people who organized nonviolently to tear down government oppression in their lives. And at that moment, I knew it. It was on the shoulders of giants with which I stand. And that was the message that I sent out to them, that I could not be fighting for liberty today if I didn't have the example of people doing it before I was even born. And that is a powerful message. And that is a message of self-ownership. That is a message of liberty. And so that kind of fueled me as I traveled across the country. I keep that in mind all the time. Another story, and if you're not familiar with my background, I'm an anti-war activist. That's how I got started in this whole liberty space. I had friends who were going to go fight the war in Iraq, and I thought that was a stupid thing. I thought that was a really bad thing, and so I got out in the streets as an activist. The first time I was tear gassed and pepper sprayed by my government, it was to fight the war machine. I've continued doing that over the last 20 years. Getting tear gassed and pepper sprayed is not as fun as it was when I was 19. But rest assured, I will still do it if I have to. But I met a man in Indiana. I was outside of a Holiday Inn, just having a couple of drinks with some friends, and this older couple walked by, and one of my friends goes, "Hey, you ever want to ask a presidential candidate a question? He's right here. Ask him whatever you want." I didn't want to do that right now, but okay. And this guy comes up and he goes, "I just got one question for you. When I was a young man, my government thought it was right to draft good men to go fight communism in Vietnam. My question for you is if you became president, would you ever draft good men and women to go fight communism in Taiwan?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, because conscription is slavery, sir. The government shouldn't compel you to have to put a gun in your hand and kill anybody if you don't want to. If it's worth fighting for, we shouldn't have to enslave people to go do that." And he said, "You earned my vote, son, because I wish somebody had said that when I got drafted to go fight in Vietnam." Now, I say that message because that guy had been waiting 50 years for somebody to say that to him, for somebody who was running for president to say, "No, the draft was wrong, and we shouldn't have sent people to go fight in that war." And as soon as I said that, a smile crept across his face. I'm telling you right now, if we want to spread the message of liberty, we cannot do it by being scolds. We cannot do it just by lecturing people on how bad they are. We must talk about the powerful, positive possibilities of liberty. And so that's what I'm going to keep doing now that I'm no longer running for president, now that I'm an elder statesman of the Libertarian Party at 39 years old. I'm going to travel across the country to continue speaking the message of liberty, to continue organizing the Libertarian Party, to put that message out there into the political atmosphere. And how am I going to do it? With a smile on my face, with my principles in my heart, ready to fight for liberty. And I hope each and every one of you feels inspired to do that. Those of you who are from here in the United States, I hope you feel inspired to make that political change here in our states, here in our communities across the country. But if you live from outside the United States, if you live in a country that oppresses your speech, that oppresses your right to be who you are, that oppresses your ability to control your business or to control the marketplace, that overtaxes you, that takes away your freedom, I want you to know the power to change is totally there. And we can see that in a little nation called Argentina. 60 years under Peronism and socialism, less than a year under a libertarian president, and we're seeing already positive changes in the nation. I heard from somebody that this convention might be in Argentina next year. If it is, I look forward to trying to get down there and meeting a lot of wonderful warriors for freedom south of our border. But just remember, no matter where you're from and no matter what oppression your government puts on you, you have the ability to make positive change in your community. Do so with a smile on your face and with nonviolence. That is the only way to make true, lasting change in the world. With that, I'm going to say what I do. I'm going to wish you the thing that I wish to each and every audience out there, which is a life of peace, love, and liberty. And if anybody has any questions, I love taking them about running for president, about libertarian policy, or anything else. But I will end my remarks with that. Peace, love, and liberty to each and every one of you. Thank you very much. I know we have a couple minutes left. Yes, sir. I can hear you. There you go.
I got to ask, I'm a Puerto Rican. I couldn't have voted for you anyway. But I got spammed up the wazoo from the left and right, text spam, email spam. I don't know how these people got this idea that I would ever vote for any of them. But that didn't stop them from fundraising me and panicking me, nonstop, 24/7 for months. And I'm so glad that's just now we need more of your money. I didn't get a single message from anybody representing you or the party. And that strikes me as weird because I'm the target audience. I would have said, no, I can't vote. But they didn't even try. So what happened here? But more important, and where I'm going with this is, as you said, this was the epitome of an election where people voted against the other guy. Why couldn't a third-party candidate do better in that environment?
Yep.
I congratulate you for the 600,000, but you should have done better than the Koch brothers or whatever back in the day, especially in states where the red or the blue couldn't lose. Like the wasting the vote argument. In the swing states, I get it. But in the other place where your guy was sure to win or your party was sure to win, why not vote your conscience in that state?
I agree.
And so what happened here?
Yeah. So the matter of texting is a matter of resources. In this campaign, we raised about $500,000. That is down significantly from libertarian campaigns in the past. And the Libertarian Party nationally, unfortunately, has been on a downward slope in donors. A lot of it has to do with some inside baseball, internal fighting amongst activists, and it's created a lot of burnout in the party. It's one of the things I'm focusing on over the next 4 years is to make sure that we're no longer focusing our guns inward, but focusing them outward towards the state and actually positively growing the party. It's one of the things that I would like to see more. We sent hundreds of thousands of texts. I'm sorry we didn't get one to you. I wish we had, right? Because we would have gotten you to say back, I can't vote for you. I'm from Puerto Rico. But I will say that we tried to send as many texts as we can. I want to shout out to my text banking team who sent out hundreds of thousands of texts throughout the cycle. But it's just a matter of resources. That costs money, and we had a very limited amount of resources we could spend. We tried to get our name out there as much as possible. Unfortunately, it just did not happen that way. Speaking of Puerto Rico, since you mentioned it, kill the Jones Act. It's making the cost of living in Puerto Rico way too high.
Hi, Chase. My name's Ray from Chicago. And to address your concern, of course, we all want the number of votes to be way higher, but the state, I'm from Illinois, the state, many states have all kinds of restrictions that keep libertarians and independents and other off the ballot. Libertarians were not on the ballot in Illinois. this time. So when I went to vote, I couldn't vote for you or any other Libertarian because they weren't on the ballot. The state. So your concern is right, but the state plays a role, unfortunately.
They certainly did. They certainly did in Illinois. And I will say in Illinois, I was a write-in candidate. I'm sorry we didn't get to let you know. You could have written the name in. Those votes will be counted. Same as New York and Tennessee and D.C. Those are the states I wasn't on the ballot. We made ourselves a certified write-in candidate. I'll tell you a story about how crazy government is. To become a certified write-in candidate in Illinois, you have to get a notarized form for every county and town in which you are to appear on the ballot. So I had to get 104 forms notarized to be a write-in candidate. When I walked into the UPS store where my usual guy is, my notary, I had like a stack this thick. And he goes, "Oh, you sending a manuscript out today?" I said, "No, you're notarizing 104 forms so that voters in Illinois can pick me because the state likes to put these stupid barriers in the way." One of the big things that we fight for, and I'm going to continue to fight for, is a thing called the Voter Bill of Rights. It was created by an amazing libertarian named Lars Mapstead. He was another libertarian who ran for our party's nomination in this cycle. And it was such a good piece of policy that I felt the need to steal it from him and use it for my own. And part of that is tearing down ballot access barriers. But yeah, I was out in Illinois, standing in front of the post office, trying to get as many signatures as I could. Unfortunately, we could not get it because the state decided to arbitrarily raise those numbers between election cycles, the same as they did in New York. But you're right. The state is ultimately a huge barrier to libertarians or any other alternative voice. We need to tear that down, support the Voter Bill of Rights. I encourage people to check that out and to keep fighting for that beyond this election cycle. Thank you very much, you guys. I hope you'll have a wonderful day and a wonderful conference.